Hey TFA Fam! In this episode, we're going to be talking about our early top 10 running back rankings for 2019.
Hike!
Welcome back to the Fantasy Authority Podcast, everyone. I hope you're all having a fantastic day or evening, whatever time it is near you. I have brought my boys back, Kevin Steele and Ryan Williams, to talk about some running backs this week. So we're going to actually talk about each of our top 10s, which are a little bit different than our quarterbacks were. We have a little more diverse top 10 running backs than before. But first, let's see how these guys are doing. Kev, how you been, man? It's been, I don't know, a hot second since we last talked.
It's going good, going well. I mean, it's an exciting week, right? We're only another week away from the NFL draft. The big day, the biggest day of the month is coming tomorrow. Wednesday, the schedule release. On Wednesday, we're gonna get the schedule out. And then I announced on Twitter that I'm having another child. So I guess that's also exciting, obviously. But so
give them the golf clap. Give them the golf clap.
Yeah. Things are looking well. Exciting time of the year, and I looked at your guys' rankings. And Ryan, we're gonna have to have a conversation about a couple of yours because yours are awful. But there's a player that like glaringly is not in your top 10, and I have to figure out why. So,
well, that probably means he's bad if he's not there. So, oh man,
Ryan, what have you been up to, man?
Man, just making sure that my alarm clocks are always set. That's pretty much where I'm at. So I don't miss any more meetings and get called into the principal's office. And other than that, no, we're good, man. These running back conversations are going to be fun. I was very excited from the jump just because I felt like we would have a lot of disparities across the board. And looking at our rankings, we do. So this should make for a good show. # embrace the debate.
Yeah, buddy, for those of you who are confused, we have had maybe 4 or 5 off-season meetings so far, and Ryan has overslept for 2 of those. So he has a really good batting average right now.
I was going to say, if this were baseball, I'd be chilling.
Hey, baseball season's in full swing. I'm supposed to go to a Yankees game on Friday.
Oh, nice.
Lo and behold, it's supposed to rain all day Friday, so we'll see what happens. I hope it doesn't. I hope it holds off. I love going to Yankee Stadium. It's a lot of fun. So we're going to get into the running back rankings here. There's a lot to talk about, right? So, me and Kev agree on our top overall spot with Saquon Barkley, which I think is probably going to be a pretty common top overall that you'll see out there. But Ryan just went completely off the reservation with his. If you are watching on YouTube, you can actually see our rankings on the screen right now. And you can see who Ryan has at the first spot.
Bring it to me.
If you're listening to the podcast, we'll get that into that in a second. But first, I want to remind everyone that if you have not subscribed, liked, or added this podcast to your repertoire yet, we would really appreciate you doing so. We're actually going to be trying something new where we're going to be splitting the podcast up and splitting the YouTube videos up into small, more digestible pieces that really kind of focus on one topic at a time rather than throwing everything at you at once. So we'd really love your feedback on this new format and how we're doing. So head on over to YouTube or head on over to iTunes or whatever you are consuming our content on, and make sure you leave us a like and you subscribe. We really appreciate it.
Also, be sure to slide into our DMs because we're trying to grow our Slack community, and I think we're one of the only, if not the only, that I've seen free Slack channel for redraft, for really anything. We're not just redraft, we're also DFS once that gets going again, where you can jump in, join our community. It's free. All the TFA riders are in there. If you have a question about trade, draft, if you want, hell, I'll even jump on a draft. If you need help drafting, I'll jump in your draft with you, help you draft. I don't care. I'm for the people. We're a community. We're a family. So just come join us, and it's free. So all you gotta do is jump into our DMs. Reach out to us on Twitter, @FF_authority, or you can jump into my DMs, FantasyRat13. They're always open.
Yeah, once again, you can see all of our Twitter accounts if you're watching on YouTube right underneath our little pictures there. We are all looking just mighty fine tonight, aren't we? So if you're not familiar with what Slack is, but you are familiar with what Discord is, it's pretty much the same thing. It's a community tool where we can communicate with you. And Slack The difference between Slack and Discord is Slack is invite only, so it is rather exclusive. Not everybody can jump in, so you will need to get in touch with one of us. We will invite you in, and then we will add you to whatever groups that you're most interested in. It's a ton of fun. During the season, these guys get so many DFS questions. I am not good at DFS. Don't ask me DFS questions unless you like losing money. And in that case, you can just send me the check.
Well, hey, I mean, Ryan's not any good either, but we allow him on the podcast, so.
Oh, hashtag blessed. Hashtag blessed.
Oh gosh, speaking of not any good, Ryan Williams, explain to us now why you have a New Orleans Saints running back by the name of Alvin Kamara as your top spot in your top 10 running backs.
Man, I mean, how easily you guys forget about Alvin Kamara and put a little respect on his name when you mention him, Anthony. My goodness, this was the running back one when Mark Ingram was suspended for the first 4 games of the season. Okay, and just pretty much dominated, put the team on his back through that time, and he's been nothing short of a Swiss Army knife since he's come into the league. He can do it all: running, receiving, and we know how much Drew Brees loves to target the running backs out of the backfield. He was averaging 34 points per game in fantasy when Mark Ingram was out. I mean, that pretty much is what it comes down to for me with Ingram now being in Baltimore. I'm really excited for Alvin Kamara this year. I mean, 162 receptions he's had and over 200 targets in his first 2 years in the NFL. And listen, I have to eat crow because this was a guy that I was not too high on to take the lead role when Mark Ingram was suspended going into last year. I was pretty low on Alvin Kamara, but I'm not going to make that mistake again. I love him this year. I think that he is, going to embrace being that lead back and really take the league by storm there with having the opportunities on what he can do. So that's what pretty much comes down to me. I mean, the other guys who are on our list here, I just feel like there's questions to be had, and really you can go any direction with some of these top guys, but I'm choosing to plant my flag on Alvin Kamara because I've seen this situation before with him, and I trust in the talent.
So okay. So here's my thing. All right. Like listen, love Alvin Kamara. Like I really think he is Jamal Charles 2.0. Like he's super uber efficient, does everything really well. Like I love Alvin Kamara. Like that's not my problem. My problem is he's not going to be the lead back, and he's never going to be the lead back for them. He was only the lead back for them last year. Now, while granted, he is super efficient, right? I mean, last year, he scored, 17 touchdowns, I believe it was on the year. Dude's a beast, no doubt. But Latavius Murray, they brought in Latavius Murray. Yes, I know you love Mark Ingram.
Oh my God,
I don't care.
This is ridiculous.
Latavius Murray is
he's not going to be the lead back because of Latavius Murray. This is laughable.
He is.
Stop, Kev. He's a goal line back.
They brought him in to play Mark Ingram's role. That's what Sean Payton has done his entire coaching career. They've never had a true workhorse back. They spread it out. So listen, I'm not saying that Latavius. I'm not saying I do think Latavius Murray. We'll talk about it in another segment because I love Latavius Murray this year, especially where you can get him. But he is going to eat into that role. Alvin Kamara is not getting.
He might see the field in goal line situations and that. I mean, they brought him in to fill a role, Kev. They didn't necessarily. I mean, he's not Mark Ingram, so he's not just going to go into a Mark Ingram role. This is ridiculous.
He's just as good as Mark Ingram is. He is just as good as Mark Ingram.
This is ridiculous. Because he's proven that over his whatever it is 8-year career that Latavius has been in the league.
When has he ever gotten to play with a lead offense?
He's going to fill into a role that is pretty favorable for him as a running back. But that Mark Ingram was that was salt and pepper there with Alvin Kamara and Mark Ingram. Like Mark Ingram was able to make a name for himself even before Kamara even got to that position and be a lead back. Like we haven't seen Latavius. We've seen Latavius Murray in a lead back role, and it's not pretty. So
not pretty. You need to go back and look at his numbers. He has not been terrible, and really bad.
Not terrible.
But he played in Minnesota, right, with one of the league's worst offensive lines. Correct. All right, we see this
for one season though.
Well, listen,
for 2 years.
If not terrible is your measure of success here, we're already not on a good track for standing up for Latavius Murray.
He'll eat into some production, Kev, but I think that I mean, it's a running back.
But that's my issue with putting Alvin Kamara 1. Like, I love Alvin Kamara. Like, this isn't a hate Alvin Kamara stance. Like, it's not at all. But when you see Saquon, when you see Zeke, when you see Christian McCaffrey, all these guys have the backfields to themselves. There is nobody. There's no like, well, this guy could. Well, this player could. Like, all of those guys are 100%
outside of Zeke, though, Kev. Like, who is my number 2 running back, by the way? Like the Panthers offense and the Giants offense are going to regress. I feel like that's my opinion. So if I think that those offenses are going to regress,
I don't see how the Giants offense can regress much worse than what it was last year.
Because they don't have OBJ on the field, Kev. I mean, that's simple as that. They don't have Odell Beckham on the field, he didn't play the last 4 games, and Saquon Barkley struggled in 2 of those games. He struggled in 2 of those games, Kev. He had like 20 rushing yards against Tennessee, and he had like 30 in that very next game. So in 2 games, he put up 50 rushing yards, still got a touchdown in one of those games against Tennessee. Okay, that's nice. And he still has a floor with the receptions that he's able to catch. But Alvin Kamara is still in one of the most prolific offenses that we have seen in the NFL here in the New Orleans Saints. And so even if Latavius Murray is able to get some touchdowns, that's just great for their offense. This is an offense that can put up 35 plus points on any opponent. So with that being said, I'm thinking that Alvin Kamara is still going to reap from those benefits, even if Latavius Murray can somehow find his way into a goal line score.
So I do tend to agree with Kev here that I am, and you can see it in my rankings, I am leaning towards the guys who have the role solely to themselves without the presence of a Latavius Murray. But I do see your point for Kamara. You guys know I like to break things down into quarters, into 4-game segments, so I go 1 through 4 and so on and so forth. Kamara, even after Ingram got back, still finished as a top 5 running back in quarter 3 and top 7 running back in quarter 4. At Q2, they had a bye. He finished 17th, so he was still an RB2 in that time. So even with the Ingram presence, Kamara is still a very good running back, and I don't think we're disagreeing in that Kamara is a good running back and probably should be top 5. He's not in my top 5 because I slid Le'Veon Bell in there, and I still have a lot of faith in Gurley, but it's really, really hard for me to put him over a Barkley, McCaffrey, Elliott, Bell, and Gurley, who all have solo roles in their offenses and are all pretty big pieces of their offense.
And that's why we debate. But this is still a guy who, even with the receptions, not being as high as a McCaffrey or Saquon, like still gets the targets. So I'm looking at that. I mean, he's had over 80 receptions in both of his 2 seasons in the league. Like that, I don't think that production's going away. And then you're taking away a Mark Ingram and allowing for him to be utilized even more often. And even if you think Latavius Murray is going to see the field, Kev, like in goal line situations, they're probably going to do split back packages. So Alvin Kamara is still going to be out there. So still more chances for him to maybe not run it in, but to have a reception there if they're loading up the box. So I just feel like this dude is still going to be on the field. He is going to have opportunities to score. And if that production isn't picked up from Latavius Murray, then it is a backfield for him. We've seen other teams bring in people to help out. Like Latavius Murray is coming in to help out. I don't think he's coming in necessarily to fill that void, but they've gone so long with having 2 prolific backs that the Saints were like, okay, we need to do something so that we're not asking Kamara to do everything, can still give him rest and have Latavius Murray out there.
Yeah, the early drafters are still taking Kamara. They're taking Kamara 4th overall, which I think if you're picking 4th overall and you land a Kamara, you'd still be pretty pumped about. Guys, I want to get your take on Todd Gurley. Now, I had a really hard time. I wanted to put him 1. I really wanted to put him 1, right? Because we don't know enough about his knee at this point to really make an educated determination on how good he'll be. But we do know that in the 14 games he played, he was above and beyond any other running back in the entire league. I mean, he was dominant this fantasy season. I slid him down to 4. I slid him down pretty much younger, known commodities with similar roles that fill up their whole offense. And those guys are Barkley, McCaffrey, Elliott. And then I put Gurley in at 4. Kev, you have Gurley a little lower at 6, but then Ryan, you have Gurley all the way at 9. Is the major concern just the knee, or are you seeing a regression in the offense? What's your concerns here?
I can't speak for Kev. For me, it just comes down to a multitude of issues. I don't like the fact that they weren't really talking about his knee, and we still really don't even know, I don't feel like, to the extent of how severe that injury is or was. And just with so many question marks this early on in the season, like, it's one of those things where Todd Gurley kind of just needs to prove it to me from a health standpoint that he's okay. So I'm just not comfortable to put him there with some of these other guys who are a little bit younger. And even I really debated on having Le'Veon as high as I did, just with him missing the whole other season. But if it's Le'Veon that we're going to be getting, that we're used to seeing, I had a hard time debating that with myself. But for Gurley, it's I didn't have Goff in my top rankings for a quarterback. Like, I think I see the offense regressing, and that would mean that Gurley would then have to regress too. So that's just where I'm at right now in April. That could definitely change, come OTAs and training camp. But I'm just not liking what I'm seeing right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's probably the biggest concern with him right now. Is the knee. Recency bias is a big deal. If you go back, remember the playoffs and like he's almost non-existent. And I think that does play a factor in sort of remembering things like, obviously the dude's still a beast. He could really come back out of this and really be because it really seems like if you kind of read some of the other tea leaves with them just letting like CJ Anderson go, who seemed to be a big factor for them, and not bringing him back. Obviously, they are a little cap strapped. They're going to have to, start making some decisions too once the Jared Goff, his rookie contract is gone. But I think that's kind of the biggest problem with him is I feel like some of these other guys are a little bit safer. Wouldn't be surprised if he finishes the number 1 running back in this year. But I do think there's some other guys that have higher upsides. Like for me, if I'm not putting Saquon at number 1, I think my number 2, and it's tough because I think the guy that could end up really being the guy that takes another big step would really be Christian McCaffrey. I mean, the dude is amazing. He really just kind of went ham last year. A lot of people were like, "Oh, he's not a back that can withstand such a large workload. He can't do it. He can't run through the tackles." Like all this stuff people were saying about him last year, which was absolutely ridiculous. But the dude's a beast, and he's the other guy that I think in a situation where you could see him ascend to that number 1 level. The number 1 overall back, this year. I do have Zeke too. I kind of went back and forth. Like I think a week ago I put this out, and I think I had Christian McCaffrey too. I kind of went back and forth between the two of them. The one thing that does concern me a little bit with Zeke is mainly that workload. Like, he's coming off a season this past year where he had almost 400 touches. Like, we kind of see what happens to running backs when they get kind of run to the ground like that. So he's somebody that I'm mildly concerned with in terms of maybe a little bit of regression because of how big of a workload he's getting, because they're still going to be relying on him heavily, and they don't have another back. Like, they have nobody there. I don't know why they got rid of Rod Smith. I felt like he was kind of a nice, backup option for them. Obviously, they could address it through the draft. And that's going to be the biggest part of this. Like, I don't think anybody in our top 10 is really going to be affected by anybody through the draft. But like some of these other topics that we get to that we'll discuss, I think that's really where this factors in is how does the draft play out? Because there's going to be some teams that are going to take some back. Do the Panthers address their backup situation and draft another back that really would affect your opinion? If they draft like a goal line guy, like a thumper, somebody who could be getting some goal line touches, take some stuff away from Christian McCaffrey. So I don't see anybody that like drastically would change my opinion of them, but I do think that's something to monitor. But Christian McCaffrey, for me, I think has the highest upside. I think in his top 3, I think he has the largest ceiling, but I do think that some of these other guys have a little bit better floor.
Yeah, I seriously I considered McCaffrey for the top spot too. The top spot was, it had a lot of contestants this time around. So McCaffrey caught 108 of 122 targets. Right, that's 88.5%. He had 6 receiving touchdowns, 2 100-yard receiving games. He's the only running back to finish as the top overall running back for 2 different 4-game segments last year. Q3 and Q4, he finished as the top overall running back. To put that in perspective, Saquon Barkley and Ezekiel Elliott didn't finish as the top running back in any segment last year. So Christian McCaffrey had a super explosive second half of the year last year, and I would hope to see him roll that into next season as well. So, Kev, you mentioned earlier that Ryan doesn't have somebody in the top 10. It took me a little digging to figure out who the heck it was before I finally saw it, because it's one of my favorites. How did I not notice that? But Ryan does not have the prior reigning rushing champion, David Johnson of the Arizona Cardinals, in his top 10. Ryan, I mean, you get to stand again, man. You have all of the
explain yourself for this blasphemous take. I need to hear this.
I mean, well, Anthony has him at 9, so I mean, like, I guess he's squeaked in there. You have him at 7, which I just feel like is way too high. What it comes down to for me is just I'm looking at these other guys in situations that I just like. I mean, we still don't know what Arizona is going to put out there for quarterback. I mean, it could be Kyler, but we just don't know what's happening with that offensive situation. So at this point in time, I'm looking at other guys. I'm looking at Le'Veon Bell, coming back into the league. I'm putting him in there. I'm looking at Todd Gurley. I'm looking at Sony Michel, who broke out and as a rookie and gets a New England Patriots situation, which is pretty much like an ideal situation for any running back with Tom Brady there. Like, he's going to have a lot of opportunities there. Broke out in the postseason, scoring 6 touchdowns, which no other rookie or running back had done, which is amazing. And I'm looking at guys like James Conner, who get a boost in the offense with Antonio Brown being gone, another guy who was a huge red zone threat in the league, who had 10 touchdowns in the red zone, I think only to be surpassed by Saquon and maybe Melvin Gordon. There was one other guy up there too. So I mean, that's what it really comes down to for me. And I love Joe Mixon's case this year for being a breakout. So when I was just going through the ranks, there were just other guys I felt confident in putting in. I still have David Johnson in the top 12. He's at 12 for me right now, behind Nick Chubb. But that's where I have. That's what I have him.
Okay, so let me tell you why you're.
Let's go.
Okay. Let me bang my head against this friggin' keyboard. He has David Johnson behind Nick Chubb. Go ahead, Kev.
Okay, so here's the deal. Like, I have thought long and hard about putting David Johnson in my top 5. I think he deserves to be there. I think he is still that good. Yes, he had a bit of a down year. That offense was atrocious, but everything from that offense, from that coaching staff, is gone. Steve Wilkes was one of the worst head coaches ever. Was not equipped to be a head coach. Now Cliff Kingsbury is an unknown, but one thing I do know is the dude is a very good offensive mind. I do know that, and he is definitely going to get David Johnson put into spots that he's supposed to be in, and where he can excel. And he's going to get back to the 80 to 90 reception guy, and I think David Johnson is probably going to be the biggest steal of the draft this year. Like, I would not be surprised whatsoever if he finishes the number 1 overall running back then this next year. He has that ceiling. He has it in him. Everybody's going to be down on him because of the year he had last year. He was not as good. I get the offense, but I do think this offense is going to be remarkably better than what it was. And like, David Johnson should definitely be in the top 10. Like I said, I really contemplated having him in my top 5. I really did. I felt a little bit stronger about a couple other guys, but I feel like that he is somebody that is being slept on because of recency bias, because of what happened last year. I do, whether it's Josh Rosen or Kyler Murray in that backfield or in that offense, I do think that their offense is going to be better than what it was last year, and I think David Johnson is going to play a key role in that offense. As long as he stays healthy, I think you see 80, 90 receptions from him. He only had 50 last year. He's going to be I think he's going to be more efficient, and I do think the touchdowns are going to be back. And So
the touchdowns are a question, Kev. I mean, we're still talking about the Arizona offense. Like, I really don't know where the points are coming from. And he's only had 80 receptions one time in his career. Obviously, like, he was hurt most of 17, so pretty much all of 17, only played in that first game. But it's just like, it was that season that we saw from him the outlier. And now that he was hurt in 17, then came back in 18, really didn't look as explosive as we expect him to see. Like, it wasn't like they were running him out there and just giving him 10, 12 carries a game. Like, he had 17, 19, 23 carries in games and only put up 100 yards one time. So it's
So I highly recommend looking at his next gen stats and looking at where they break down, like, where they're running him. Every single game, every single week, you would see, like, Matt Harmon or somebody else post his next gen stats, and they would be up the middle. Every single play would be right up the middle. They never moved him around. They never got him out into space, which is where he excels at. The way they utilized him last year was embarrassing, and I 100% believe that they're going to get him on track, and I think they're going to, because he is a top 2 or 3 talent in terms of being able to pass catcher out of the backfield. You can line him up in the slot. You can put him everywhere. And I do think they're going to utilize him as that kind of weapon. And I do think David Johnson is probably, as of right now, things could change. People start hyping him up. I do think he could rise up. But if he does not, he is going to be an absolute steal in drafts where you could probably get him in the mid-second round, maybe even a little bit later than that. And if you could get him there, I will be doing backflips in drafts if I could even get him in the second round, because he's a guy who probably should be going in the top half of the first round, but he's not because of recency bias. I get the concerns. I get the offense, but I do think, like I said, the offense is going to be better. And I don't see how anybody – I just think we're sleeping on him because of what happened last year, and I think it's a big mistake.
Listen, the r/NFL subreddit had a question probably a couple months ago: is who's somebody that has the best chances of having a comeback season is going to be undervalued next year? I said David Johnson. I got a lot of likes on that. I still believe that. I have him at 9 right now behind Connor and Gordon. I feel like those 3 for me at this point in April are a little interchangeable. I want to see what the Cardinals do in the draft. And, I want to see a little bit from Kingsbury, right? It may take a preseason game for me to kind of get a feel for how this guy runs an offense. I don't watch college, so I have no idea. But David Johnson could easily slide up. I think highest he'll get for me is 7, probably exactly where you have him, Kev. But I love David Johnson. I mean, this guy was like my LaDainian Tomlinson in fantasy. Like, he was my keeper every single year. Like, give me my David Johnson. So quick, guys, 30 seconds each. We each have somebody who nobody else has. So I want you to take 30 seconds, tell me about somebody that nobody else has in their top 10, and tell the other 2 why they should consider putting them in the top 10. Kev, we'll start with you. Looks like Dalvin Cook is the only one you have separate from the rest of us.
My man, Dalvin Cook, my man. Like, this dude, you guys are sleeping on him. I don't know what else to tell you. The only concern you can really have with him is, can he stay healthy? He's had soft tissue injuries. That's what hurt him last year. But I mean, even last year, he was top 3 in missed tackles, forced. He was the dude has all the talent if he can just stay healthy. That's all we need. Quit being Arian Foster. Give us a healthy season, because if he stays healthy, he's another guy that has top 5 potential among running backs. He is in an offense with nobody. There is nobody in that offense with him. It's his backfield, and his really only issue last year was Latavius Murray being there, because Latavius Murray stole his goal line work. He only had 1 goal line carry last year. That's going to change. He is an excellent pass catching back, and I do think the Minnesota offense takes a step forward and is much better. It's kind of the offense that we were hoping it to be this year. And with Dalvin Cook, I think with the receivers they have, the pass catchers that they have should alleviate some of that. Hopefully they invest a little bit in that offensive line. They need to fix that offensive line, because if they do that, Dalvin Cook is an absolute steal, and another guy that if you can get in the second and third round is an absolute steal, because I love Dalvin Cook, and I think he's somebody that truly breaks out this year and has a big year.
All right, 90 seconds is the new 30 seconds. Thank you, Kev. I do know that the Vikings want to run more this year, so that gives him a little bit of an uptick for me. Still nowhere near my top 10, though. So, Ryan, you have Joe Mixon and Sony Michel in your top 10. Neither Kev or I do. So pick one of those guys. Who's your go-to?
Well, yeah, I talked about Sonny Michel a little bit earlier. Joe Mixon for me, I just love this guy's talent. We just forget 2 years ago he did have the issues in college, but I think that overshadowed what his talent really was, and he struggled in the rookie year. But with his breakout season, sophomore year, putting over 1,100 yards on the ground, on getting the carries there as well too. That was nice to see him get up to 237 attempts. I think it's going to be an offense for him to kind of take over. AJ Green's in a contract year. Tyler Boyd's going to be in a contract year. He gets receptions out of the backfield, and they line him up in the slot too. Like, I really do think that we're looking at somebody with the talent of a Le'Veon Bell here, and I'm excited to see what he does for this offense.
All right, Joe Mixon. I probably would have him in the top 12. Let me tell you, I had a very hard time with number 10. That's why I was so shocked that you didn't have David Johnson in the top 10. 'Cause I could not figure out a number 10. I went through a couple people, but I landed on my boy Philip Lindsay over there in Denver. Now I know Kev hates this. Kev hates this on multiple fronts. First of all, he's given a little foreshadowing there for a future segment of where he's going to have Lindsay. But also, he's a Chiefs fan, so anybody in Denver is automatically toast. But hear me out for a second. Philip Lindsay finished just outside RB1 status in 3 of the 4 segments last year. Actually, after he finally got the starting job and got going, he finished as the RB13, RB15 when he had a bye, and then the RB13 in the last 4 weeks, 13 through 16. I think now that he's got a full offseason under his belt as the starter, he has pretty much a season as a starter. I think this guy comes back, he reaches RB1 status, he'll definitely be top 12. I slid him into the top 10. Big fan of Philip Lindsay.
All right. He's got a great story.
He did.
He's
got
a great story.
That's all he's. I mean, yeah. I mean, but it's almost shocking to me though, because I feel like that, because Anthony is always the second year running back guy, and he's always I don't buy second year running backs, and he's a second-year running back, and one that really fits all the mold and the makings of a guy who is that bust second-year running back that we overhype because of 1 year of production. I'm just
possibly. But Dalvin Cook has 2 years of being injured, and you still put him in your top 10, so I don't know what that says about you. So that's all we have. That's all the time we have for this segment, guys. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Once again, make sure you reach out to us and let us know what you think about the shorter segments. Let us know what you think, how we're doing on YouTube, how we're doing on the podcast. You can reach us at FF_authority on Twitter, or you can just leave a comment here on the YouTube video as well. That would be awesome. Make sure you like and subscribe as well if you do enjoy the content. That way you get notified the next time we release a video. Also, while you're commenting, let us know who is in your top 10. Who's your top... who is your number 1 overall, your number 1 guy? Do you agree with Kev and I on Saquon Barkley? Are you on the Team Ryan over there with Alvin Kamara, or do you have somebody completely different?
Woo!
Let us know down in the comments below. You can also let us know how crazy we are for, the 8 through 9 guys, which are always very different. But thank you once again for listening to the show. This has been the Fantasy Authority podcast for Kevin Steele and Ryan Williams. I'm Anthony Pinzone. That's our top 10 running backs for 2019, early edition. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, embrace the debate, but have some fun with it. There's no use in arguing. See you later, guys.